Hi everybody, here is Fabio bringing you the state of Resto Druid in Battle for Azeroth Alpha. And today we are talking about my love. Resto Druid has been my first healer at the time of Wrath of the Lich King, and it was the first healer that I raided with in heroic difficulty back in Cataclysm, so my heart is still there. And I still think to this day that is the healing spec that I have most fun playing with. I just love healing with the healing over time effects. So, well, enough with the chit chat and let's get down to business. First of all, Healing Touch has been removed. Yeah, it's a sad day. Healing Touch has been with us for a long time, but yeah, nostalgia apart, I mean, I can totally see where the change comes from. In Legion we had the new mastery with the effect of multiplicative of the healing over time effects being more effective when the more healed hearts you have on the target. So Healing Touch has no synergies there at all, so it has been quite a dead spell both in Raid and in Mythic Plus, so I can totally see why Blizzard is removing Healing Touch. Another change is for regrowth, where we are losing the initial 40% crit that we had in Legion. Together with that, we had a redesign of the talent Abundance. Now you can see here on the screen on the left side the new talent that we have in Battle for Azeroth, and on the right you see the Legion talent setup. So let's look at Abundance. Previously, this was the talent. For each rejuvenation you have active, the cast time of Healing Touch is reduced by 10% and the critical effect chance of regrowth is increased by 10%. Now we no longer have Healing Touch to start with, but the new Abundance is for each rejuvenation you have active, regrowth cost is reduced by 6% and critical effect chance is increased by 6%. So this is very important, especially for the reduced mana cost. So Blizzard is giving Resto Druid an additional tool that we didn't have in Legion, because now we can cast Regrowth. It's a new feeling. We can cast Regrowth when we need it if we take this talent. And it's gonna be a tool for spot healing, obviously. In Legion, the only spot healing that we could do was Swiftman, and if Swiftman was on cooldown, we could just hope and pray that the other healer could save that guy's life, because we didn't have spot healing basically. The only situation where you would cast Regrowth was for Omen of Clarity proc. But if you have to cast Regrowth, I mean, that guy was... I mean, you really have to cast it to save someone's life, because the mana cost that it had, the huge dumping of mana that you were doing just to cast one single Regrowth was absurd, was enormous. So nobody was casting Regrowth, basically, outside of Omen Clarity procs. And the new Abundance gives us this tool, to being able, if we want, if we spec into it, to do some spot healing. So my recommendation will be to take Abundance if you're not taking Prosperity. Prosperity obviously still has that nice, fun synergy with Soul of the Forest talent. But if you're not taking Prosperity, Abundance competes with Scenario Word. Scenario Word probably will be the most HPS talent of the tier, but it's just another hot, you know. Its additional throughput looks well on the meter, but very rarely Scenario Word will save somebody's life, while Abundance could totally save somebody's life. That's the scope of that talent. So my recommendation is, if you're not taking Prosperity because you're not taking Soul of the Forest, then take Abundance over Scenario Word. You're losing a little bit in HPS, but you're getting an additional tool in this spot healing that is very important, and Resto Druid was lacking. So let's move forward. and we were talking about Soul of the Forest. So let's look at row 75. Nothing has changed really. We've just nerfed a little bit cultivation because it was too strong and everybody was always taking cultivation basically. But we have an important change in row 90 and 100 because germination has been moved from row 90 to row 100, and it has been swapped with stonebark. Stonebark has still that awkward design where just basically reduces the cooldown of ironbark, which is useful, but the second effect is just meh. It increases the healing from your heal over time effects by 20%. Might be interesting somewhat in Mythic Plus, maybe. In Raid it's gonna be never taken basically. If there was all of the healing of the target was increased by 20%, maybe it would be more helpful, or if the Ironbark damage reduction was increased by this talent, would be very interesting. Also because remember that we're losing our artifact weapon and our Ironbark comes back down from 30% to 20%. So yeah. So Stonebark, not very well. I think that it needs some redesign. But anyway, we will not be able to take Germination and Flourish anymore, as we were doing most of the time in Legion. But we can now have the Mastery build with Germination, Spring Blossom, Cultivation. So this is what I call the Mastery build, because as you can see, Cultivation is an additional hot, Spring Blossom is an additional hot if the player is standing in your efflorescence, and Germination is an additional hot. So you have 3 additional hot, and your Mastery is gonna do amazing things with this build. It's very tempting, it's very interesting, but I think that this build will become dominant only on the second half of Battle for Azeroth. Once our stats go higher, we ramp up in gear and our secondary stats grow, our mastery will grow, and all of these additional hots will actually make it very powerful. At the beginning of of Battle for Azeroth, I don't think that this is gonna be the go-to choice for our talent build, because remember that now Flourish is a more powerful Flourish than what we had before, and Flourish is completed with Germination. Now Flourish has baked in also the essence of Ganir, basically. Let me read it for you. Extends the duration of all of your heal over time effect on friendly targets within 60 yards by 8 seconds, and increase the rate of your healing over time effects by 100% for 8 seconds. So we are losing our artifact weapon, but Blizzard, rightfully so, decided to keep our weapon ability. It is probably the best of the weapon ability between all of the healers, and I'm very glad that it stays, even if it's in a form of a talent. I think it makes totally sense. So please remember that the new Flourish is much more powerful than the old Flourish, and it's competing with Germination. So it's gonna be a tough choice. My prediction is that, especially at the beginning of Battle for Azeroth, Flourish will be the go-to choice. At row 90, it's gonna be a competition between Spring Blossom and Inner Peace. Spring Blossom if it is a stacked up fight, Inner Peace if you can take advantage of the Tranquility every 2 minutes. And as I was saying, especially at the beginning of the Battle for Azeroth, it's likely that the combo Prosperity plus Soul of the Forest will become very much viable again, as it was viable at the starting of Legion. Let's take a second to have a look at what could be a dungeon build at the beginning of Battle for Azeroth. Row 100, there's no competition. I mean, Germination is gonna win all the time, because having Germination in a dungeon environment is too important to pass on. Row 90 is gonna be inner peace all the time unless they change and buff something out of the Stonebark. You're never gonna take a Spring Blossom, obviously, so these two rows are gonna be cookie cutter. Unfortunately, I don't think that you're gonna swap them out much in Mythic Plus. In 75 you have some choice because you could take Cultivation, or you could go for the combo as we were saying before, Prosperity plus Soul of the Forest. Another important change is going on with Tranquility. In fact, as you can see on the screen here, they added an healing over time effect attached to Tranquility. Now it heals all allies within 40 yards over 8 seconds, but each heal heals the target for another 12% of spell power over 8-second stacking. So this means that when you heal with Tranquility, you're applying a hot that is stacking over and over throughout your raid. Obviously, this means that Tranquility will heal more the more you cast it, and it comes back to the Cataclysm design, where we had Tranquility with a direct healing component and a healing over time component. So I'm very glad to see it come back, just for nostalgia first of all, but the second reason why I'm glad of this change is that Tranquility is the most powerful healing cooldown in the game. Is so powerful that most of the time a significant portion of Tranquility goes wasted into overhealing. With this change, they are basically spreading the power of Tranquility over a longer period of time, because remember that the last hot that you're applying at the 8th second is gonna last for another 8 seconds over. So their Tranquility is spread throughout 16 seconds instead of 8. So this is good. Just please remember that if you're using Tranquility in order to counteract a specific raid mechanic of damage, you need to precast it. This means that you need to look at your DPM, and 1 to 2 seconds prior the big hit of damage, you need to start casting Tranquility, so that when the damage happens, you're sure that everybody is topped off, and also you have everybody with 1 or 2 stacks of the Tranquility hot. Now let's take a second to review the viability of Resto Druid in Battle for Azeroth Alpha. Well, first of all, please remember that we are losing some power in our bear form because it's gonna be nerfed. The damage reduction potential is gonna be nerfed. Actually, it was a little bit too powerful to have a damage reduction with no cooldown associated to it. Blizzard realized that and they decided to nerf it down a little bit. The other important change that I've already mentioned is that we are losing the artifact weapon, and together with it the armor obviation trait. So this brings down Ironbark from 30% in Legion to the current 20% that we had also in Worlds of Draenor. So these are two utilities that we are losing. Please remember that when we are talking about the importance of a healer, as I explained in the other video, it's all about the importance of utilities. We're never talk about throughput, because we believe that throughput more or less is gonna be balanced. Losing our artifact weapon, we are also losing Tranquility on the move, as it has been confirmed in a couple of interviews. So this is not just a skill thing, because you need to be aware of when you're casting Tranquility, but it is also a utility. It's a CD that the raid leader previously could assign to a druid to counteract a specific mechanic that had damage and movement associated to it. Let's say the Bridge of the Monarch. You could not do that again. So this is very important, and it is actually a little bit of a utility loss. And finally, we are losing our blink. Displacer Beast has gone, and it is replaced by Tiger Dash, that is basically another dash. So we are losing a little bit of utilities there, but it's quite fine because there are also other healers that, as you know, are losing some utilities going into battle for Azeroth. So, what do I think of Resto Druid? Well, first of all, please remember that I think that they are gonna be very fun. No, jokes apart, I think that I really like the design of Blizzard and the little modification that they made to the talent. I still love the mastery, I love abundance, the new abundance, and they are gonna be very viable again and again in Battle for Azeroth, especially because of the healing on the move niche of the Resto Druid. It seems that Blizzard is keeping this capability of being very strong healer on the move for the Resto Druid only. There is no other healer that can do that as well as the Resto Druid, and this is gonna be very viable for sure, because there are gonna be for sure there are several fights where healing of the move is gonna be very important, and in those fights a Resto Druid will shine. Also, the healing over time effect is in general a very good thing to have in your raid, because it smooths out a little bit the damage pattern of a fight. So, thumbs up for the Resto Druid. Let me know what you think, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao!